Greetings, fellow barbarians. It is I, Alan Odinson, and this is the Barbarian Lounge Podcast. I want to thank you guys and gals for joining me today. Got a pretty cool show lined up for you. It's kind of a topic that I've been going over a little bit the past few days. Something that I've been described as, and the more and more I think about it, and the more I look at successful men and women throughout history, and even in modern society, it's kind of a trait that they tend to have in common, and it is the trait of obsession. But before we get into that, let's get a little bit of housekeeping out of the way. I'm going to try to go through this as quickly and painlessly as possible. First off, our website is thebarbarianlounge.com. Go there, check it out. I urge you to check out our shop. We got some new items that are going to be popping in there very soon. I know I keep saying that on the show, but I am at the mercy of my shippers right now. So I don't want to post anything up until I have it in my hands. So stay tuned. You better believe I will give you updates as soon as that becomes available. You can also check out our host website at thebarbarianlounge.podbean.com. Go there and check that out. If you're not a member, you can go to our become a member on our Patreon site. That is patreon.com/thebarbarianlounge. Basically what you do is you'll go there and you'll do a donation, a per episode donation. So we do a total of 8 episodes per month. So a lot of people do $1, some people do $3, some people do $5, some people do $6, whatever it may be. And you'll just be charged for the amount of work that I do. So if I only do 1 episode, guess what? You only get charged 1 episode. Now, hearing me say that, you probably think to yourself, well, wait a minute, I only hear 4 episodes of the Barbarian Lounge every month. How do we have 8? Well, if you're a member, you become eligible for exclusive episodes available only on our Patreon site. So you get our 4 regular shows early ahead of everybody else. Sometimes the regular listeners have to wait almost a week. Sometimes it's like 3 days to get our shows. But as a Patreon member, you get the shows early, uploaded there on that site. But you also get 4 exclusive episodes available only to Patreon members. You'll never hear them anywhere else. I will never upload them anywhere else. They will stay right there on that Patreon site. So if you're not a member, you will never hear those episodes. And we get to talk about some really cool stuff on there. Needless to say, I can let my tongue hang a little looser on the Patreon site because those people who've decided to listen there to our members' content, well, they've got a little bit of skin in the game. So for them, I applaud them. They are the Barbarian Horde members. So hail to you guys. But you could also, on the barbarianlounge.com, you can go there and check out the donate button. You'll find a link to the Patreon. Also, if you check the description of the show here, you'll also find a link to that Patreon site. So you can check that out. There's a lot of different ways you can support the show. So if you go to thebarbarianlounge.com, you can check out the donate button. There's a lot of different options you can do on there, and just select which way to go. But my suggestion to you is become a member. Like I said, for a minimum of $8 a month, you've got the ability to support the show, help keep the lights on, help keep me full of rum, and let me do this show more than I'm currently able to do. I'm looking to get more content out there, but if I'm being honest, I'm waiting right now to get a few responses back from some listeners. For some interviews. As it stands, we are steadily approaching our episode 50, our 50th episode, and I have a very awesome guest lined up for that 50th episode. It's a guest that several people have been requesting, but I have specifically held them out for the 50th episode. So that show is coming up here in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. You can also find the Barbarian Lounge on Facebook. Find the Barbarian Lounge podcast on Facebook. Give us a like there. Keep track of everything that we're doing there. We post a lot of articles. You can also find the Barbarian Lounge show on iTunes, on Stitcher. You can also find us on ucy.tv Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Check it out there. Sponsors, OdinsonArchery.com, traditional bows made from non-traditional materials. I urge you to go there and check it out. If you've ever been interested in getting into archery and you don't want to break the bank, Odinson Archery is the way to go. High quality, durable bows that are available in a variety of different styles. You can get your arrows there. Everything you need is there. 100% handmade, 100% made in America. Everything you get there is 100% American made. So support small business, support the Barbarian Lounge, and go to OdinsonArchery.com. Also, our other sponsor, Mitacon. I'm going to do my commercial voice. Mitacon, with proper diet, supports the cell's fastest, most effective absorption of natural nutrients in each 250 milliliter bottle and sustains the body's mitochondria generation. I can't talk today. Generation of usable energy, key to producing ATP, the energy-rich fuel the body needs to achieve peak athletic strength, performance, endurance, and recovery. Mitacon is, like I said, you guys have been listening, I've been getting back into powerlifting again, and Mitacon enables me to really make that recovery that I need. Recovery's always been an issue for me with powerlifting because I like to do a lot of other things, and you need to kind of save your muscles a good bit for the type of lifting that I'm doing. And, you know, I can get a lot of quick recovery using Mitacon. Also helps me stay focused because you guys know sometimes I can get off on some rants and some tangents, so it's good to have something that actually helps my mind stay focused a little bit. So check it out, MitaconUSA.com. Go there, talk to my boy Ben, he'll hook you up. As always, guys, got my glass right here. That's right, got my mug. Nice big pirate mug, and we're off. We're going to launch out the gates here, and let's get into the content of this show. So today we're going to be talking about obsession. Obsession. What does it mean to be obsessed? To want something so bad that nothing will stop you. Nothing, you'll let nothing stand in your way. You will beat down every wall. You will smash through them all. You will move any object, anything, any beast that may stand in front of you to stop you from passing. You will crush it, you'll kill it, you'll eat it, you'll do whatever you have to do to get what you want. You know, for a lot of people, the idea of being obsessed that much about something is almost seems unnatural to them. It almost seems like it's an unhealthy thing. You know, if you listen to a lot of psychiatrists and a lot of people with all these funny-looking letters after their name, that for some reason it proclaims their brilliance, I guess, when you have a bunch of letters after your name. You know, it's kind of like one of my buddies he's actually a chiropractor, but he always jokes about MDs. He says the MD as far as they're concerned, the MD stands for minor deity in their eyes, at least. That's what they think. They think they've got it all figured out. And they'll tell you that being that obsessed about something, that's unhealthy. It's an unhealthy thing. And don't get me wrong, naturally, if you become obsessed over something like, you know, following somebody around or of an individual, yeah, that can be an unhealthy obsession. But I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about any types of obsessions that are pushed on people, these cultural obsessions that have been sold to us as being real and tangible. I'm talking about a desire to do something glorious. I'm talking about a desire to do something maybe that no man or woman has ever accomplished in their lives. To build something grand. To build something new. To create something from nothing. And you'll stop at nothing in order to achieve that. That's the type of obsession I'm talking about. Let's look here, if you want to actually define, according to Merriam-Webster, if you want to define obsession, obsession is defined as an idea or thought that continually preoccupies or intrudes on a person's mind. And this is something that has been brought to my attention on many occasions for myself. Whenever I get this idea in my head, and I think I've talked about it on here a good bit. People that know me know that I kind of go through this. If you've seen some of my some of my posts and stuff on Facebook, you'll see where I talk about this a good bit. Where my mind is just constantly attaching to ideas and is constantly attempting to solve problems. It's a funny thing. I'm being someone who is a craftsman, somebody that is a builder by trade. I'm always trying to push the envelope. I'm always trying to come up with the new idea, the thing that no one's ever done before. And a lot of times what you end up finding is things that have never been done before, a lot of times they haven't been done before for a reason. Usually it's because of it's because of schematics. Maybe materials don't necessarily go together like you would please, but a lot of times when I look at the failures that people have for building things, what I see is a lack of insight for the most part. A lot of times for me, though, I'm just not really willing to concede that it can't be done. And a lot of times, sometimes I find myself correct, and sometimes I find that those people who had attempted and failed, well, there was a good reason for that. But that is the plight of the builder. It is the plight of the craftsman. It is the plight of the individual who becomes so obsessed about doing something that they'll do whatever they can or whatever they deem necessary to get it done. I remember I used to watch my father. My father was a craftsman as well. It's funny, I never really got involved with his craft building. It was never something that he built all kind of things. And I'm telling you, I've spoken many times. I am fairly good at what I do, and the people that see the things that I make, they say it's amazing. And I just tell them, I laugh. I say, look, guys, I'm a kindergartner playing around with Tinker Toys compared to what my father could do. My father was the college professor who could craft pretty much anything out of nothing. It was absolutely unbelievable, and I wish I had a fraction of that skill. But I used to watch my father when he would work, and I would think to myself, how in the world could he sit there and stare at these plans for so long? How could he sit there and just constantly work to try and get this one piece absolutely perfect? And he would fail numerous times, yet he would still go right back to it every single time until he got it right. Or maybe he would fly off in a blind rage and crush everything. But that's also the plight of the builder. But I remember watching my dad. One of the things my dad would build was he liked to make remote control airplanes. And I'm not talking about little teeny ones. If you've ever seen the big giant remote control airplanes, those are the things he would make. Most people go out and buy those. He would actually build it from the ground up, starting with absolutely nothing, and he would build them. And it would take him forever to finish them up. And I remember watching him. He had this idea for building a jet. And there's several jet remote control airplanes. And I remember he had this idea for building a jet, and he poured all of this time and all this money, and he worked on it for over a year, just constantly. Free time he had, he was working on it. Just always trying to get it right. He had plans and schematics laying all over the house, and I remember he got this jet finished. He finished it up. He took it out to the local little flying area that they had. Fires it up, jet takes off. It makes it probably about 20 feet up in the air, then nosedives into the ground and smashes into a million pieces. And you would think someone that spent that much time working on something would have just broken down. But my father, he just smiled. I think he had it on video, which made it even more awesome. But he just smiled and was just like, well, that's how it goes. And he started right back over again. And it was at that point that I really started to realize that it wasn't about the finished product. Yeah, don't get me wrong, the finished product's amazing. It's awesome to build a jet. It's awesome to build all kind of things. But it wasn't about that. It was about the journey to actually get to that finished point where somebody said, you know what, you can't build a jet from nothing. You can't do that. And he's like, oh, but you're wrong. I can. Because you see, I'm absolutely obsessed with doing this. And a lot of times, one of the things you find, especially for me, is people will tell me, and I'm sure when I say this, you're probably thinking the same thing. You probably know people that are the same way. But, especially when somebody tells you can't do something, oh, you are incorrect, sir. You are incorrect. Usually what I tell people when they look at me and they say, you can't, I say, what you're actually telling me is that it's actually you who cannot do that. So you're projecting that failure already onto me. But you see, I'm not like you. I'm not like you. My father wasn't like these people who would tell him he couldn't do those things. But he did it. And yes, the jet crashed and burned. First flight. But guess what? He got it off the ground. He had it made. He built it. And you know what he did? He took those parts and he took them home, tore everything apart, took the motor out, took the engine, all these things out, and he started right back over again. And it was just this obsession with, I have to get this thing to fly. And before you knew it, a couple more crashes and burns, but guess what? That jet was flying through the air. No problem. Amazing people out at the range. Where'd you get that from? Oh, I built it. You what? That's right. I built it. I made it. Another example, when I remember when I was writing up the content that I was going to talk about, just kind of putting out my outline. I couldn't help, when I think about obsession, I couldn't help but think of the term magnificent obsession. And if you know what I mean by that, you probably heard of a gentleman by the name of C.T. Fletcher. I would love to get C.T. on the show. I've tried to contact him a couple times, and I haven't been able to get any good response. C.T. Fletcher was a gentleman who was a power lifter, a extremely strong guy, massive, huge man. Was setting records during his time. And C.T. had a heart issue. I want to say he had a heart attack. I could be wrong on that, but he did have a heart issue that put him down. And the doctor told him, said, you know what? You're never going to be able to do this again. Never. Look at you. I remember he said this was one of the things that drove him. Was the guy was like, look at you now. You know, you're one of the strongest men in the world. Now look where you're at. You know, almost kind of challenging him in a way. And C.T. says that he was so obsessed with working out, so obsessed with lifting, so obsessed with obtaining the physique that he wanted, the look that he wanted, that determination, that focus, that he was willing to risk death just to grab those weights and lift again. It's amazing if you find he has a documentary entitled My Magnificent Obsession. I believe that's the name of it. And listen to his story. It's absolutely amazing. How this guy has crawled up from nothing almost and was at death's door. And, you know, the doctors told him, look, you could die at any moment lifting weights. And he says, you know what? The price is worth paying. You know, when you think about that, how many of us have something that important to us that we will be willing to lay down our lives in order to attain it? If you listen to last week's episode regarding Charles Vane, that was something I talked about a lot. Charles Vane was willing to hang for Nassau. He was willing to hang just in defiance, just to show his defiance towards the governor there, the king of England. He was willing to hang for that. He could have walked away easily. He could have accepted that free pardon and been out the door, no problems, no questions asked. Free to go, free to do whatever you want, but he wouldn't do it. Some people could say that's stubbornness. Maybe he was just obsessed with the vision he had of what Nassau could have been. But you know, in our modern society, we do see somewhat of a negative form of obsession, but a lot of times this negative form of obsession is actually really kind of dictated off of an unnatural form of living that a lot of people are doing now. A lot of our culture, I've talked about this ad nauseum, but a lot of our culture that we have these days is very much a culture that has been sold to us. It is a culture that has been created. People ask, you know, man, what in the world's happened to people now? What? I can't believe it's gotten this. You know what? If you read a lot of the writings of these globalists throughout the history, if you read a lot of their writings, this is not an accident. Everything we're seeing right now, from the rise of these entitled communists, everything from that all the way to the alt-right, all of those things, guess what? They're actually something that's been, we're seeing cycles repeat. There's a reason these cycles repeat. They're using the same playbook because it works. Why change things over? So a lot of what we're seeing, a lot of the culture we have, the culture of decadence, the culture of degeneracy, this is all something that has been laid out for people to follow. And this isn't some sort of conspiracy theory. I'm not reading out of some fucking conspiracy book or anything like that. No, this is all documented. These are things that you can actually trace. I've got one of the books right here. I'm going to look. It's sitting on my bookshelf here. Is that it? No. Oh, there it is. Right here. If you want to read one of the real books on how they really learn to sell you shit, to sell you a culture, to sell you stuff you don't need, how degeneracy was formed, I'm going to tell you, I've got the book right here. I'm going to tell you the book you need to read on that. You're probably, just think about what it could be for a second. Is it a book written by Hillary Clinton? Is it a book written by George Soros? Maybe Obama? Maybe going back to Mao Zedong? Hitler? Who wrote the book? The name of this book is A General Introduction to Psychoanalysis by none other than Sigmund Freud. Now, Sigmund Freud himself was not somebody who was using these things against us, but it was his teachings that were taken by his, I believe it was his nephew, Mr. Edward Bernays, to create what they call the Century of the Self. Anybody who ever asked me how we got to where we're at, I urge them to check out Century of the Self. It's a 4-hour documentary. It's split up into an hour each, so it's 4 specific episodes. But if you watch episode 1 and 2, 2 hours out of your life, you'll learn why society is the way it is. But a lot of these obsessions that we have in our lives, these false obsessions, they've been sold to us. They've been sold to us for a variety of different reasons. I could probably do a whole show on that, and I'll probably get into that just a little bit here. But I'm going to talk about some of these modern obsessions that have been sold to people. And many of them you probably know, but I'm going to divide it up here just for a few. Let's talk about obsessions for the modern man, right? And I use modern in quotations because, they're slowly but surely attempting to breed the savagery out of men. And that's one of the reasons I created this show. I want men to understand the exploits of people of the past. That's why I do shows about Edward Teach and Charles Vane and Captain Morgan and all these different guys like that. That's why I've done shows on Vlad the Impaler. There's a reason for that. I want you to realize that you're not that far removed from your savagery. I want you to remember that there is a savage beast that lies within all of us that can rise up against all comers if need be. You may die in the process, but you better believe your fucking story will be told. So let's talk about a few of these obsessions for the modern man. So the first one is the most obvious of all the obsessions of modern man is sports. That's right, sports. Holy shit, fucking sports. I have to tell you, I don't mind sports as far as like every now and then maybe checking it out, but when the Super Bowl rolls around, I typically do not know who's playing. I know a lot of people like to joke and go, "Oh, I didn't even know there was a game." You come on, be fucking real. But a lot of times I don't. Maybe by the time it gets down to the final, like the NFC and AFC championship, maybe I'll know like the 4 teams just because I've heard it online so much from my other friends who are who are obsessed with sports. But sports is the modern day bread and circus show for a lot of people. And, it's okay to watch sports, don't get me wrong. But the obsession with sports absolutely drives me crazy. It does, because most of these people know more about their sports team than they know about their country. Most people know more about their sports team than they do about their own history. Most people know more about their sports team than they do their own family. If I tell you to tell me something about your 5 times great granddaddy, what can you tell me? But then I say, who's the starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers? I don't know who the fuck that is, by the way. I had to struggle to think of a team. But people get so obsessed over sports, and there's a reason that sports is pushed for modern men. There is a reason for it. It's one of the reasons. It's one of the things that you look at the writings of guys like Bernays. You will see that it was designed to get people, to get men in particular, to channel their natural aggression into something else. Because let's be honest, all sports let's take something like football. Well, I mean, football, basketball, baseball, all those things. Basically, all that is it's basically a simulation of combat. You've got your team, which is of your specific area, state, whatever it may be, versus another state. So they engage in mock combat with you winning. That's why, after it's over with, everybody runs around and says, we won, even though they weren't actually playing. It's simulated combat. But when you can get men to channel all of their aggression, to channel all of their anger into a sports game, into something like football, channel all that there, well, that also takes that anger, puts it in some place that is controllable, and allows, I don't know, maybe say the federal government to run amok. It allows the NSA to be able to spy on you without much recourse for their actions. It allows politicians to be corrupt without people marching on Washington, an armed rebellion. That's what it does. It keeps you content, it keeps you quiet, and it allows all that aggression to be put somewhere else, and that allows these corrupt politicians, corrupt leaders, it allows them to run amok. It's a very sophisticated game. If you look going all the way back to Rome, you saw the same thing happening in Rome. That's why they had the gladiatorial games. They wanted to keep the people docile. What better way to do that? Give them plenty of bread and circus. Plenty of it. Keep them fat, decadent, happy, and channeling that aggression anywhere else but the state, and we'll be safe. Nothing has changed today. But modern men, when you meet guys, oh, you watch football? No. Oh, shit, I don't have nothing else to talk about. I get that all the time. People, oh, did you check out the game? No, who was playing? And when guys get disarmed with that, especially the modern man, when he gets disarmed with that, you see that most of these people have no substance to their conversation. Oh, I don't discuss religion and politics. Really? Because that's what adults talk about. That's what men should be talking about. It's the famous quote by John Adams. I'll probably butcher it, where they ask him why doesn't he just forget about all these politics and forget about all these things going on with war and politics? And he says they said, why don't you just enjoy the theater and the arts? And he says, I study war and politics so my children may enjoy the theater and the arts. Because that's what the fuck a man does. A man's not obsessed with all this bread and circus show. It's been sold to you. It's been sold to you as a way to channel all that aggression. Imagine what you could do with that harnessed and focused in the right direction. The other thing that gets me, and this is a small one, and it's one of those things that some people become obsessed over, and for men especially, is alcohol, beer in particular. And hey, guys, I love alcohol just as much as the next guy. And it's one of the few things that quiets my busy mind late at night. But a lot of guys, they can't sit down and have a conversation without having a beer in their hand. They have to have that alcohol, that social stimulus that allows them to be able to talk about whatever it is they're going to talk. Usually beer and sports are combined together. And I've just met people that they can't sit down and have a conversation with you without having to start chugging beers. And usually the conversation quickly degenerates into not a conversation, right? Usually ends up going into some bullshit. It's okay for people to drink a little bit. I mean, I'm a rum drinker. I like my drinking of alcohol, but some people become obsessed over it to the point where they can't even function without it. And it's something that's pushed on men especially. And I think it's because it does dull the senses a bit when it becomes this obsessive thing where people get so much to the point where they have to drink all the time and get completely fucking wasted all the time like an idiot. But you have to think, well, why is the whole consumption of alcohol something that's pushed on society? Well, it feeds right into the dumbing down of people, and it definitely does disable the ability to have productive conversations many times. At least when you get drunk with it. The other thing that's pushed for men for an obsessive standpoint is women/sex. And you're probably going to think to yourself, what? What are you talking about? Well, let me tell you something, guys. I love women and sex just as much as the next guy. But one of the things that's really pushed on men in particular, and women as well, you'll find, I'm going to talk about women here in a minute, and you'll see that both of these kind of correlate together, is that this whole idea of treating women as some sort of sex object, some object to be used, some object to be used and abused. And I find that absolutely disgusting to what women actually represent for man. You've heard me say many times that the females are absolutely 100% our most valuable commodity. If we don't have any women, guess what? Society does not last very long. But yet, they've been, in men's eyes, they've been put in this position of that to be degraded, that to be treated less than. And I'm not talking about some sort of women's lib bullshit. I'm talking about the degenerate culture that's been pushed on us, and women in particular. And honestly, women have been sold this whole concept of being very very over-sexualized as well. And it's kind of like this is gonna sound weird. I was walking at the beach a few weeks ago, and I was walking with somebody, and I said there was a girl walking around, and she was wearing like a bikini or whatever, and her bikini was kind of up her ass crack. And I made the comment, I said, I think women walking around on the beach in public with their asses hanging out is distasteful. And they looked at me and they said, well, that's the way they make bikinis these days. I said, they make bikinis with your ass hanging out of them? And they're like, yeah. And, maybe I belong in the 1950s or something, I don't know, but I find that in public, I find that to be very distasteful. And I know some guys will be drooling and panting, acting like a fucking retard over it. But let's be honest, is that exactly what I'm looking for in a woman? Do I want a woman that's going to lower herself to that sort of standard, that she's not classy enough to be able to present herself in a way that I don't have to over-sexualize her in order to be attracted to her? So let's talk about just real quick some modern day the obsessions for the modern women, right? Image is a big one, and image has always been something for women, but it's a skewed image these days. Now they're pushing this anorexic idea for women. You look back in the days of Betty Page and things like that. Women have changed over the years, but there's a whole idea with women. They push this false image of how a woman should look, how a woman should act, and all these things. And it's further, I think at the end of the day, what you're looking at is a slow and steady attack on the family, attack on the societal norms that we've had pretty much since man has been tribal, since man has been communal and living together, which dates back much further than I can date. But we see that. Image is always a big one. And, that goes right into the next one, which is over-sexualization, which I just talked about a minute ago. It takes a woman and completely lowers her to the most substandard basis of a man's mind. I mean, you basically, what they're doing when they push that society on you, when that culture's been sold to you, basically what they're doing is they're putting you in your animal brain. They want you to react with that of an animal, not as a human being, but as an animal. And I have a problem with that, because when people start moving with that whole animal brain mind, that allows, there's a reason that man is at the top of the food chain, okay? It's not because we're the strongest. It's not because that we've got the best, we can fight so well with our lack of claws. We have no teeth that can really cause damage to a tiger. You throw a man out in the bush with a tiger, or throw him in the African bush, see how long he lasts, right? Throw that same man out there with some of our modern day technology that man thought of himself, well, then that's why we're at the top of the food chain. So when they can take you and sell you a mentality as that of an animal, that's telling you exactly what they think of you. And this is in the books. You read the psychoanalysis book, it's in there. Read some of the writings of Bernays, it's in there. Read some of the writings of Carol Quigley, it's in there. This is what these people think of you. And this society has been sold to us. It's been sold to us as a way to keep us lower than. But I'm asking you today to recognize these things so that we rise up. So we get higher up. We climb that mountain. So you have to understand, these guys that are at the top of the food chain, who have sold us this corrupt society, the whole game is not for you to climb with them. It's for them to stand on top with a boot on your face. So they sell this society of over-sexualization. They also sell an idea of false strength, of what a strong woman is, right? They tell you a strong woman is a woman who can go out and have all the sex she wants. They tell you a strong woman is a woman who has birth control paid for her. And a strong woman walks around with their vaginas hanging out and titties flapping. And it's like, what are you talking about? You are taking the woman and lowering her standards and saying that this is strength. It's topsy-turvy world. Everything is upside down and backwards. But this has been sold to us. This has been sold to us with the century of self. And we have to understand that the whole idea between these things, there's a reason that these things all go together. There's a reason that sports and over-sexualization go together, and alcohol and image and false strength and all these things start blending together. This whole idea of the century of self is not just about selling you stuff. It's not just to get you to buy stuff, even though that was a major part of it. But a lot of it was selling you a new sort of culture. And we're seeing that. I mean, you look at the media. The media is pushing it right now, pushing this new form of culture. Granted, they're meeting some backlash because, let's be honest, it goes against everything that we stood for, that we've always stood for. But you have to understand, they don't care about you or I. The whole game is playing on the next generation. And if you don't think they're winning that game, you are wrong. That is why we're fighting so hard. We're not fighting for ourselves. We're dead men. We're all dead already. How many more years do we have here? Who knows? The game is the hearts and minds of the next civilization, or the next generation. Your children. And look at how the colleges are going right now. Look at what's being taught in our middle schools. Look what's being taught in our high schools, elementary schools. If you do not think they're winning that game, you are incorrect. Who are the ones that were out there begging for socialism under Bernie Sanders? It's the young college kids. There's a reason they move these people into areas of higher learning. But this century of self, I mean, you have to think about it. There's a reason those lines between man and woman are being kind of moved together, right? It's the ability to sell you basically a one product idea, right? You don't have to make a man product and a one woman product. You just have just one product. The new human being, right? The new cisgender, all these other weird fucking gender things they have out there. But, you know, if you look now, it used to be the original idea behind the whole century of the self-obsession was to sell you things, sell you stuff, right? I don't need a new car, but look, there's a movie star driving the car. I think I'll get one, right? Because that's the thing to do. Then they sold you presidential candidates. Well, this movie star now is saying that this president is great, and I like that movie star, so I think they're great as well. Now the whole idea is selling you a social image. So the new obsession now that is being pushed in our culture is not necessarily stuff, but that social image is now replacing this whole idea of having stuff, right? You don't want to be looked at negatively socially, right? I don't want people to dislike me. I don't want to have my Facebook page actually, my text tone going off there. I don't want to have my Facebook page actually attacked, or I don't want people to hate what I post on there. So I have to make sure that I keep my social image very, 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 very low key. You know, I don't want to push any buttons. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. But that's the whole game, right? If the government were to roll out and say, you know, from now on, we're going to censor every single thing you say. Everything you say is going to be absolutely 100% policed, and you will be censored if you say something we don't like. Now, granted, those things are starting to roll out on private platforms, but the easier route is to convince people to police themselves. That's always been the game. how much easier is it to get people to police themselves, to create a correct behavior, I guess you can say. So the government doesn't have to step in. So it gives you this kind of illusion of freedom. But we have to understand, there's one thing we can learn from the ideas behind C.T. Fletcher. When he talked about this idea of a magnificent obsession. You see, men like me, and a lot of the men that I tend to associate myself with, women as well, we have this magnificent obsession to not be like everybody else. For a lot of us, it's something that we strive for every day. There's things that I always try and do to try and separate myself from the other people. It's the ability to build, the ability to create. These abilities for me is my obsession. But at the end of the day, when you take all those things that I just talked about, and I talk about my obsession with different things, I talk about the obsessions of other men and women. At the end of the day, there's a reason that I went through that whole tangent about the century of the self and these false obsessions that they have, because it is our goal, taking this whole thing full circle, it is our goal to begin to take those back. To take these phrases and this mentality, this false culture, this empire of nothing that's been sold to us, it is our duty as men. It is our duty as human beings on this planet. It is our duty to our people and our families to begin to take those things back that have been taken from us. Our culture is one of the biggest things. Whenever society falls, the culture goes first. If you do not think there's a war against the culture that I speak of, this obsessive culture that wants for a strong society, a strong people, strong lineage, strong legacy, if you do not think that there's a war against that, you are sadly mistaken. So let's talk about some of these magnificent obsessions for men these days. I'm not going to go into women on this one. I don't want to run the podcast too terribly long. I may go into this a little bit later for some of the ladies. But I want to talk about men here because men and women are going to kind of blend on a few of these together. But for men especially, men being the backbone of society. Because let's be honest, it's a two-parter, but at the end of the day, the men have a huge role in society. And I see the attack on masculinity being one of the most vicious and vile attacks that I've seen in recent years on anything. It's constantly demonized. It's constantly skewed where they're telling you this is what a man's supposed to be. This is how a man is supposed to look. This is how you're supposed to act. It's time for us to start taking these things back. So we need to talk about some obsessions, some magnificent obsessions that mankind needs to take back from the system that has sold this corruption to them. This degeneracy, this empire of nothing that they push on us. It is time for us to really grasp what our magnificent obsession is. The things we need to take back. The things we need to exemplify as strong men and women. The first of these magnificent obsessions is strong father. Strong father is a massive one. It is one of the most important roles you will ever play as a man in this world, is being a strong father. And notice I said a strong father and not a good father. Okay? You can be a good father and still not be a strong father. There's a lot of things that a strong father will provide for their children, especially for their male children, but women as well, their female children as well. But a good father has the ability to, a good father goes to work, he brings home a paycheck, he provides for the family, everything's taken care of, and all these things like that. But there's certain virtues that he does not pass along to those children. One of those could be the fact that he absolutely is subservient to other men in ways that is not necessary for him to be. Let's say maybe the good father is out there with his son, and a guy cuts in front of him in line, and he doesn't say shit. He just sits there and he takes it. It doesn't mean go out there and fucking fight everybody, but, you know, you're teaching your child there that, you know, it's okay to be taken advantage of by other people. Same thing for a female child. A good father may go to work every day, makes good money, everything's taken care of, but he comes home every night. He doesn't pay attention to his wife. He may go out there and he may go out with the boys a little bit, drink a little bit, watch some football, and he comes home, he goes to bed, and that's that. Well, you have to understand, as a father for a female child in particular, I have a daughter. As a father for a female child, you are setting the example of what future men for them are supposed to act like. Is that the type of man you want your daughter with? Think about that. Think about that, gentlemen who have daughters. You know, we always put a lot of emphasis on sons, and don't get me wrong, sons are important. But at the same time, you have to understand, you're setting the example, men. You're setting the example for what your daughter will look for in the future. What is she going to look for? A slacker that comes home, drinks beer, sits in a recliner, and he walks around like a self-propelled stomach? This giant stomach leading the way as his body follows? Right? Is that the type of man that you want your... Well, you know, he pays the bills. There's more to being a good man than paying the fucking bills. This is why I use the term a strong father. A strong father sets an example. He's a role model. He's a role model for his children. When his kids look at him, they should think that man is a fucking god. He's a fucking god in my eyes. And that doesn't mean he has to go out and dominate everybody and he walks around with this false bravado, this fake machoism that gets, you know, it gets confused for masculinity, I guess you can say. This false macho mentality that it's about as ridiculous as you know, the fucking feminists who are out there trying to act like they're dudes. It's the complete opposite end, but it's fucking ridiculous. But a strong father is a good provider. He's a protector. He teaches his children what it is to be a strong man. Another one of the magnificent obsessions we can take back is honor. Honor is a big one. I am not a fan of selective honor. Some people have this idea of selective honor, meaning that honor is only reserved for, you know, whomever. I'm not of that mindset. Honor is something to me that is a code, and it is a code. And granted, your honor may not cover everybody under that same code, but your code is your code. That's one of the things that I had when I was doing the episode on Charles Vane. One of the things with Vane that was definitely a negative aspect was his code of honor was a bit skewed. And I think as men, we're tempted in many ways throughout our lives to really kind of go back on our honor in a way. A lot of people sell their honor. Men especially do this. They'll sell their honor for some of the most ridiculous things. You know, yeah, a lot of people sell it for money. And I think that's a ridiculous reason to sell your honor, because that's one of those things that, you know, you can get more money, right? But I know guys that will sell their honor, sell their reputation just to make a little bit of cash. And that's disgusting to me. And some of those men are actually looked up to. And, you know, their followers get into this whole idea of not even realizing they're being taken advantage of. But what can you say? Not everybody has the same code of honor. But I think honor is definitely something that for men especially, that we need to really sit down and evaluate our code and really put it into use. The third one of our obsessions we need to take back is industriousness. And I'm not talking about necessarily going out and you know, you have to go out and fucking, you know, build all this crap, and and you're not a man if you don't build things. That's not what I'm talking about. When you talk about the mentality of a builder and a creator and someone who's industrious, this is someone who's constantly on the move. They're constantly making things happen. Because you have to understand, you know, a creator and a builder, someone who's industrious, it's not just about things, right? You're not just building and creating things. There's all kind of aspects you can be building and creating around you. You could be creating a tribe. You could be out there, doing work with children in your community. You could be doing work with your neighbors. But the main thing with industriousness that gets me with people is one of the things that's definitely been an idea that's been pushed, and I also think there's a reason for this too, is a lack of industriousness that leads to a laziness amongst men. Men who want to sit around and play video games all day. And hey, video games are fun every now and then, but a lot of people just become obsessed over video games, and they get so caught in this false world where their actual real world is falling apart around them. And they're too blind to see it because they're so caught up in this fake world. But industriousness too, a lot of guys are just get in this whole mentality of being comfortable with their place, right? I'm comfortable here. I got a good job, making money, and I go to work, come home, yada yada. I understand it. I get it. I've been there before. But we have to understand, as the modern man, as a man who's looking to take back these things that have been taken from us, industriousness is one of the things they don't want. Because let me tell you something: the guys at the top of the food chain, they absolutely are obsessed with moving. Constantly moving. That's the thing that gets me. People that say they don't know what they want to do, like if they say, well, I'd like to do this and I'd like to do that, and I just ask them, what kind of steps are you making to get there? Well, I'm waiting on this. No. Industriousness is about moving. I want you moving. I don't give a shit what you're doing to get there, but just move. You may not make it in a year, you may not make it in 2 years, but if you're constantly moving, you'll get there eventually. But so many people just get caught up in sitting back and not making moves. I've talked a good bit on this show about no matter where you're at, you should always be making moves to climb higher. Even if it's in your job where you're currently at. You don't have to start a business to be industrious. Maybe you're just a regular employee. Maybe you start making moves to become the supervisor. You never know how high you can climb until you grab that next piece of the ledge and pull. But too many people are just content to sit back. And this society of laziness, this culture of slack that has been pushed on us, well, that's done for a reason. Because let me tell you something. What is it easier to tame? If you're trying to keep something under control, is it easier for you to tame a pen full of sheep or a pen full of lions? Obviously the lions are harder to tame, right? Well, the sheep, they don't really, they can fuss and they can run, but they tend to be kind of out of shape. They're kind of, they don't really have the claws and the teeth to bite into you, right? Well, that's the idea of the lazy fat man, right? It's the idea of they're easier to control. You get sick, knees hurt, back hurts, can't fight your way out of a wet paper bag, not very strong. Well, that makes you so easy to control, now doesn't it? You gotta have your medicine, right? Gotta have your medicine. What are you gonna do if they come knocking on your door? You gonna be able to fight back? Or are you going to have to call somebody? Or are you going to be at the whim of the state? Just a thought. Number 4, capacity for violence. An individual who has a good capacity for violence tends to be a respected member of their community for the most part. As I talked about before, when we had the power outage here, immediately the law enforcement was tied up. We live in a small town, but law enforcement was tied up with issues of managing the roads and whatnot. Plus it was icy, it's difficult to get around. After the flood, same thing. Roads were cut off. We couldn't get any help. So who was coming to me? Well, I had neighbors coming to me saying, hey, you know what, I'll give you food. I'll cook food for you. So I ate very well. I'll cook hot food on my grill for you if you just provide a little bit of protection here for me at night. Well, absolutely, 100%. And, I tend to find, for the most part, most of the people around here, I kind of keep to myself for the most part in my community, even though we're a very small community. I kind of keep to myself. Everybody knows me, but I don't really hang out with a lot of people around here. Everybody knows me so much as in my town, I don't have to keep my doors locked on my vehicle. I can drive anywhere in my town, keep the doors unlocked. I can leave my car sitting in the front yard, keep the doors unlocked, and nobody will fuck with my truck for a reason. They know who I am around here. So, it's kind of one of those things where you build a level of respect amongst your community. It's not fear. I'm nice to everybody. I hold the door for people. I smile. Everybody meets me. I'm very nice, but everybody knows that I have a capacity for violence if need be. But this also fits right into the man's role as protector. Are you going to be the guy that people are going to call on? When your children need protecting, when somebody is trying to get in your house at 3 a.m., are you going to sit back and run to your panic room and hide in your safe space and call and hope 911 gets here? Or are you going to be the guy standing on the other side of the door with a shotgun ready to put a fucking crater in the chest of any motherfucker that tries to come in there and mess with your family? I don't know how women live with guys who are like that, who are so fucking weak that they have to sit back and just pray that somebody shows up so that their husband and them do not die in the process. It's amazing to me. And I know a lot of guys like to jump out and say, well, if I have to, I'll do it. Bull fucking shit. If you're not actively seeking to become better at violence, you will crumble under the pressure. Plain and simple. Plus, being somebody who has a capacity for violence also sets an example for other men or men to be in your area. Be that guy, right? When you're in public, I've been this way a few times. When you're out in public and there's somebody being a fucking asshole, there's guys standing around and nobody will say shit to them, right? They'll let them be an asshole just because the men are fucking weaks. They're weak as fuck. And you're that one guy that is willing to say, hey, shut the fuck up, get at the back of the line where you belong, and that's that, right? I've been there. I've challenged people to go outside. I had a few weeks ago, this is a small example. I had a gentleman at a movie. I went to see the movie Logan. I'll tell this quick story here real quick. I went to see the movie Logan, and I'm in the theater, crowded theater, and there's this fucking fat, 400-pound black dude that sits next to me in the theater. And this guy just he brought his three small children with him. Small children to a rated R movie. And, the kids are chattering throughout the whole movie. So that's to be expected. There's no place to move really in here. But this fucker keeps falling asleep. Like, seriously, the lights go out. It's like he's narcoleptic. The lights go out, and he's over there fucking snoring. So, I say something to him, like, hey, man, shake the thing. Oh, sorry. I don't understand. Maybe you worked a night shift or something, you're fucking tired. Well, the motherfucker keeps falling asleep. And finally he gets aggravated with me because I had to actually hit him on the arm, like, hey, hit him on the arm to get him to wake up. Because he's fucking snoring. There's people all around me. Nobody will say shit to him, right? He was probably about 6'4", maybe 400 pounds. He was a big motherfucker. And, he finally got pissed off at me doing that. I say something to him about it again. Then he pulls his fucking cell phone out and starts fucking around with his cell phone. Now we're sitting up top and he's got this big ass fucking phone with a light on it and he's fucking blinding me. The people behind him is blind. I was like, hey, put that fucking phone away. You're blinding everybody. And then he looks at me and he says, why don't you go fuck yourself? And it's like, oh, damn, I wish you hadn't have said that. So I stood up and I said, come on, you and me outside, let's go. You want to talk shit? Come outside and we'll have a conversation out there. And he starts puffing up, right? Oh, you don't want me. You don't want that. You don't want that. And I'm like, I absolutely do. Get the fuck up. Come on, let's go. And people around me are just like fucking gasping. And he's still blowing up. I said, you done got up and left your fucking kids here before. I said, that's fine. Leave your fucking kids here. They'll still be here when you're there. When you come hobbling back up the stairs. But for now, let's go the fuck outside and you can tell me to go fuck myself out there. And he keeps puffing up. You wait. And I'd already kind of said to myself, because this guy had already proven himself to be an asshole, and he didn't really earn himself a fair fight. He hadn't stood up out the chair yet. Me, I'm standing up here.